This is The Last Laugh. I'm Matt Wilstein from The Daily Beast, and today I am joined by a comedian who, in my opinion, just might be the most consistently funny person on the planet. You know him from Saturday Night Live, Portlandia, and Documentary Now. His new album is called 100 Sound Effects. Fred Armisen, welcome to The Last Laugh.
Thank you, and thanks for the kind words.
Yeah, I mean it. You have made me laugh, just as much as anybody else over the years. So I'm very thrilled to have you here.
Oh, that's so nice. I'm glad. I'm glad that worked out.
I want to talk about your number one best-selling album. But the thing that I wanted to start with first is you did this bit on Jimmy Fallon's show a couple of months ago that I just can't get out of my head, and I've watched it probably too many times at this point. You're playing the drummer performing Diana Ross's "I'm Coming Out" like it's the first time he's ever heard it. And to me, it was this sort of perfect encapsulation of your comedy, this blend of music and comedy. So I wanted to just ask you about that, and where did that come from? Is there a story behind coming up with that bit?
No, there's no big story behind coming up with it. It was just, it's a song that I love. Also, everybody loves that song. That's like, it's such it's sort of timeless hit. And I was just listening to the intro, and it's almost like something that's just occurred to me, because there's that stuttered drumming, like the starts and stops for those fills, and it doesn't quite get into the groove yet, which is a good effect. It's really good for anticipation. But then it just, I don't know, it just sort of, I just thought, oh, what if this drummer just actually didn't know how the song went and is just trying to find his way into it.
Yeah, I loved how much it delighted Jimmy Fallon, and I'm sure Questlove and the Roots as well. They were getting a big kick out of that.
Yes, I've talked to Questlove about it, and that's always fun because he knows all the ins and outs of how stuff got recorded and when and everything, and so like it's definitely like it's fun to nerd out on all that stuff too. All the trivia behind it.
So I want to talk about this album that you made, 100 Sound Effects. It seems like something that may have started as a joke or something that you didn't know you were going to end up taking as seriously as you did, but you can tell listening to it how much work went into it. So when did you decide that this was something that you were really going to commit to and take as seriously as you ended up taking it?
It was like, I guess now it'd be over a year ago, that it was just like something that I felt like was missing in general in sort of the record buying experience. You can get older sound effects albums, but and by the way, I'm sure there are some that have come out, but I just felt like, oh, whatever happened, it was like a question, like whatever happened to those albums? And then little by little, I thought, what is it like to record them? How does someone go? How do you start? And then it just kept going, where I would then start writing ideas down. And then I thought, well, I have 10 solid ideas. Maybe I could build on those. And then I just kept adding to it. So from there, I made a decision. Like, I'm going to turn this into a real album.
Some of them are very straightforward, sound effects. And then some of them are almost like mini observational sketches that are ideas that are probably too small for SNL or Portlandia or some of these sketch shows that you've worked on, but do sort of serve as these mini sketches. What I thought we could do is listen to a few of them that feel like that and just get your, story behind it or what comes to mind when you hear them now. So I wanted to start with band Soundcheck, Sound Guy, and band Agreeing for Too Long. So let's listen to that.
Great.
Hey, I'm good out here if you're good.
Yeah, I'm good. Sounds good.
You got monitors okay?
Yeah, sounds great. How do you think it sounds?
I think it's great. I'm good if you're good.
I'm good. Good on your end. Good for me.
I mean, once the room is filled, the bodies will sort of absorb the rest of whatever, echoing there is, but It sounds really good out here. Vocals are good, guitars, bass, everything's really, really very good.
Right. And it's going to sound good when the room's full?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Better. But we're all good. If you're happy, I'm happy.
Love it. Sounds good.
So that's Mary Lynn Weiskopf playing the singer of the band. And that is just like this thing that happens in sound checks where once the whole band this is around, 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the band is sound checked and it's a comfortable place to be. Like everyone's happy. So you don't want to move on. You don't want to like, just, okay, let's get ready for the show. It's almost like, oh, I'm happy where I am. And so the sound person and the band can only talk through the PA. So those are actually coming through speakers. So when we recorded this, there are many layers to it. So first of all, everything has to go through speakers in the studio, so it sounds like a venue. Mm-hmm. So I took it for granted. I just thought all you have to do is speak into a microphone and put some effects on it, and it'll sound like a PA, but it didn't. So Daryl Thorpe, one of the engineers or the producer, or whatever you want to call it, we had speakers in the room that I spoke through, and then there's Mary Lynn sort of replying, and we just wanted to sit in that moment for too long, where you'd think they'd go, okay, great, well, we're done with sound check. And the other thing that was missing, we recorded it. That was live. Like, that's me and Mary Lynn really talking, but then it was still very empty. And then I realized, oh yeah, during sound checks, musicians still noodle. Like they still kind of will hit a drum, kind of play the guitar a little. So I just added some, instruments just to make it sound like, okay, they're really on stage.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that one is sort of one of the, because it's something that's going on for too long, that's one of the longer tracks on the album. And then there's all these really quick things that are even sort of smaller observations in a way. A bunch of them having to do with travel. So this one is car door closing, car rental.
Yeah. Is it locked? No. There we go. Yeah, that's the kind of, when you have a car rental, obviously you don't know how to, if it's really locked or not. And also, as time goes, they keep getting more, the technology keeps advancing in a way that sort of goes past us. We're like, oh, it's already locked, or all I have to do is be near the car and it'll open. So there's that sort of, you're tentative. So even when you close the actual door, you don't do it with confidence. You do it with like, I think I just closed the door. I don't want to break it. And then the little bit of dialogue that I had there, it just wasn't obvious enough. So I just added a little bit of like, oh, is it locked? And I think like with car doors or car rentals, I think we all do tend to talk to ourselves. Like, where do I return it? What lane do I go in to return the car? There's a lot of like, you just say to nobody, is it locked?
Then this one is one that really made me smile, and I think it's even shorter. So let's listen to this one. This is called Room Service Ooh.
Ooh.
I think I recognize that voice. That's your wife, Ricky Lindholm.
That's Ricky Lindholm, and that's the sort of, no matter what, when you get room service, I think the whole experience is fancy. No matter what you got, it's always like an indulgence.
Yeah.
So whatever, even if it's just fries, as soon as you open that thing, it's like, ooh, you're sort of excited. You're in the moment of enjoying that you actually got room service. So it's that sort of sping. Like it's an excited, here's our food. I don't think any of us will ever get over it. I've yet to, I've yet to experience like being bummed out by getting room service. It's always nice.
So with all of these sounds on the album, there's this sort of like, you're recognizing something or trying to recreate something that's familiar. And it did occur to me that there is sort of a parallel between that and the impressions or accents that you've made a big part of your career and sort of being able to replicate something. Do you see a similarity between those two things of trying to replicate sounds and having an ear for that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think it is a little bit like short segments of sound, and it's all sound based, and it's like, for lack of a better word, it's just observation about how sound affects us, or even, historically, what sounds exist today, because accents are changing all the time. So it's almost like a document. Hopefully, if I'm doing an accent accurately, it's like a document of, this is what this accent sounds like today. And same with these sounds. My hope is that in, I don't know, 20 years, you could be like, oh, that was the sound of 2025, That's what car doors sounded like. Maybe they won't have car doors in the future.
Was that something you were doing from an early age, imitating sounds or voices or trying to do characters like that?
Yeah. I think I was always doing impressions, even as a little kid. I remember entertaining my dad. And also, my parents aren't American or weren't originally American. So because they're immigrants, they had to learn a new language. So we would have different languages in the house. And I think that it just makes, luckily as a little kid, I didn't appreciate it then, but I had to I was forced to have to discern different sounds and sounds of words. So it's almost like a lucky thing that happened that English wasn't the first language of my parents.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people probably know that you started out, as a musician before really getting into comedy. But
yeah,
when did, even the idea of being on a show like SNL seem like a possibility for you? Was it when it happened, or was it was there a time when you thought, oh, maybe I could do this as a career?
That's a really good question, because it's very easy to fill in the blanks of what I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm so used to saying that all I ever wanted to do was be in a band. But then I'm like, well, why did I watch SNL so much? I watched SNL really early on, and something about it must have resonated with me. And I don't think it was as simple as it made me laugh. It felt like a two-way conversation. Even as a kid, there was something about this show that was speaking to me. The way that they mixed musical guests and, sketches and comedy sketches. So somewhere in there, I have like vague memories of like really wanting to be as confident as Bill Murray when he's on a talk show. So I don't know. I think that somewhere in there was a little bit, and especially when Mike Myers was on the show, as soon as Sprockets happened, then I really was like, this show is really saying something to me. And it felt like, it just felt like a message that, as crazy as it sounds, of like, come here, we're doing something here and for all those years that it took, it really did feel like an invitation. Sprockets wasn't just funny to me. That was a little bit of a like, okay, now we really speak the same language.
And do you feel like you were then at that point even thinking of like, oh, this is what I might do if I was on that show, or types of things that you would have wanted to do?
A little bit. Maybe it was more vague than that. I just knew somewhere in the back of my mind, it's so hard to explain, but like, it made sense to me that that's where I would end up. And I kept watching it. I never stopped watching SNL. I watched it all through the 90s. It was just, it's always been in my life. Every time there was a new cast or a new cast member, when cast members left, I always knew, or even like sort of mourned it a little bit. I'd be like, why are they leaving? That part I never understood. I was like, but I'm watching them on this show. Now I get it, but back then I definitely would miss people once they left. But definitely never stopped.
In terms of you joining the show, I mean, I've talked to so many people on this podcast about their SNL auditions and the incredibly high stakes and how fraught it was. I'm wondering if it was any different for you because you were sort of coming at it a little differently. You weren't coming from, the sketch comedy world as much. You were kind of had your own path. Did it feel as high stakes as people describe it for you, or did it feel like, oh, if I get this,
No, it wasn't. It wasn't high stakes in the way that I was already amazed to be in the room because I had spent so much of my time being a drummer in a band that I really actually felt like I cannot believe I got this far on this whim of an idea to do comedy. I spent so much of my life like trying to get better at the drums and trying to figure out how radio worked. How do you get on the radio? How do you tour in a bigger band? How do you become a better drummer? And to think that I was in the studio soon after that, at 8, I mean, you really are at 8H in front of Lorne. I for real was like, I cannot believe this got this far. And if this is it, hey, incredible. So I felt like I had nothing to lose, and I was excited to be in that room. So it didn't feel high stakes. I didn't feel nervous.
And that's kind of, I've heard that about you in general at the show, that you did not have the type of anxiety around performing on SNL that a lot of your peers have talked about. Is that true, or is that?
Yeah, it's true in that the whole thing felt like, a nice added bonus to my whole life. The whole thing felt like that feeling I had during the audition of like, I can't believe I got this far. I felt it every year. Wow, I can't believe I've been on SNL for a season. I can't believe I'm a cast member. I can't believe I just met this person. I just met that person. And I don't mean it in the way that like, I don't mean it in like a sort of self-deprecating way of like, whoa. I mean more like that I appreciated it all the way through. And I appreciated getting to really become friends with all these people, with Tina Fey and with Lorne Michaels and everybody there. So it's more that. And like every year, even now, after that 50th anniversary show, I still look at it and go like, I cannot believe that I was a part of that show. Can't believe it.
Yeah, I loved seeing you, and everybody at the 50th. You had that really great bit that you got to do with Vanessa Bayer on Weekend Update with Seth Meyers. Was sort of became the Lorne Michaels roast portion of the night. I'm wondering, how did that become the thing that you did at the 50th, and did you have conversations with Lorne about it? Did he know exactly what you were up to?
No, not quite. I'm sure, of course, I mean, everything goes through, by him, but he already knows the characters. It's more that Colin Jost had the idea for me and Vanessa to do it's the best friends of so-and-so. And before it's always been tyrants or, whatever, dictators or whatever.
Yeah. What does that say that now it's Lorne?
No. Well, I mean, it's more that it's a tone you take. Like when you talk about someone you love, you're best friends with someone, but then you kind of like privately, you lower your voice or sort of close the door. And then Seth helped us write it, and he was more like, well, maybe we should make it about Lorne, because we were trying to think of who else was in the news. And because it's the 50th anniversary, it gets it's less topical. It can't be like the same, like this is who's in the news this week. It had to be a little more general.
Well, and it's about the show. It's about the, it's sort of more self-referential too.
Yeah. I mean, you have to also, so that it has a longer shelf life as a piece or whatever. So that was Seth's idea, and it was a good idea. And we kind of went for that, and then it just shaped itself from there. And then it became also a little more fun to do, because it's like obviously, the 50th anniversary of this show, it's like the whole thing was for Lorne, since the show is his creation. So it's not like we're talking about some, producer who's been there a while. It's more like it really is his thing.
Did he talk to you about it at all afterwards or have any reaction to it?
Oh, we talked plenty about it. He loved the whole weekend because, there was 2 shows.
Right.
And he was into it all. He's so supportive and so into comedy and so into performance. It's the best. I mean, it's evident. It's evident. And when I used to watch the show, even the way that those bands were booked, I felt like was very Lorne. I felt even that was part of the message. That I talked to Lorne about Ricky Lee Jones. She was a musical guest once. And I remember when she was on, I was like, that was so cool. They had a sort of what hobos used to use to keep warm, like flames, like whatever, under the bridge or whatever it is. And they had that as a set piece. And when I talked to him about it, I just remember him like really connecting with like, yes, we did, it wasn't a distant memory for him of like, oh, I don't know, the art department did this thing. He was like, we really connected on that Ricky Lee Jones performance.
Did you feel like you were able to be friends with Lorne while you were in the cast, or was it only after you left that you really had that connection?
During, because my feeling is that I was so like, I really feel like I connected with what the message was supposed to be. Because there's something, I know, by the way, I'm not saying I'm special, but like other people didn't. I'm just saying that like, the theme to our friendship was like, I was like, I know what you're going for. You're like, I am so on board. I'm so on the same page with you. And especially when it comes to, music act. So like, one of the first things I talked to him was about the musical guests on the show. So like us talking about music, I think is what really bonded us. And so whenever someone would get booked, I just felt like, oh, I know what this week is. I know what, I just really, also he's funny and he's got all this wisdom. So yeah, I felt like I could easily be friends with him. Yeah,
I mean, the names that get thrown around a lot in terms of who could succeed Lorne is often, Seth and Tina. On the music side, even, do you think, is that something that you would, want to do, like be in charge of the booking the music on SNL?
Oh, wow. I actually think I would be the wrong person because because there are things I probably don't understand yet about how music is distributed and what matters. So, when they've had K-pop artists, I wouldn't have been the right person to find the right artist. So I'd be like, yeah, K-pop, absolutely, this should be a part of the show. But you need someone who is like ahead of everybody, someone younger, and someone who's like, who'd be able to tell me, you don't understand. This is who should be on. And even if I said, oh, are they on TikTok? They'd be like, not even, that's old. Like, there are people who are have a pulse of something on another level that I have no business even trying to understand. By the way, I'm saying this as a compliment. I'm not saying like, oh, I don't, I love everything new. I love young bands are amazing. I keep getting surprised and I get so into it. But when it comes to booking, I'm like, someone else who like really knows who to book should book this when it comes to music. I have too much baggage. I'd get caught up in something dumb, right? Like I would get caught up. I'd be like, well, why is there no, like, why are they playing that kind of guitar? Or I don't I'd get too caught up in the baggage of stuff. And the way that they're doing now is great. And I love it when I haven't heard of an artist. That's when things are great. When I'll see that there's an artist I've never heard of and I watch it and then I love it.
Yeah, that's what the show has been so great at, I think, is booking artists sort of ahead of other people or before they're actually big and sort of predicting who's going to be big, and then probably also helping and make that happen as well.
Yeah. And also in harmony with the rest of the show. Like it has to somehow work with the sketches. I'm not saying it echoes the sketches or anything, but it weirdly has to have like, it's got to be complementary to the sketches. It's got to work alongside of it. I don't know how that happens. I feel like the people who book it now, they're just there all the time, so they know what's going to resonate with the audience. But it's so exciting when it's someone I don't know.
Hey guys, I'm excited to tell you about Inside Trump's Head, a new podcast from The Daily Beast, hosted by Trump biographer Michael Wolff and the Beast's resident provocateur Joanna Coles. 3 times a week, Michael and Joanna unpack what's really going on inside the mind of the world's most unpredictable man, Donald Trump, bringing you unflinching access and insight you won't find anywhere else. If you've ever wondered what the hell is Trump thinking and who hasn't, you don't want to miss these conversations. Subscribe for new episodes every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday on YouTube, and the next day on your favorite podcast platforms. When you talk about getting sort of caught up in the minutia of something or that kind of thing, was that something that you struggled with at all at the show? Sort of like figuring out what your role is or how to sort of be part of the whole fabric of the show, and as opposed to like doing your very specific thing?
Oh, that's such a good question. I would say, yeah, there was a time I remember when Maya left the show, and she moved back to LA, and she had already been on the show a while. I was newer, and I remember thinking like, I wanted to just do sketches with her. I was like, that's like, it made sense to me. We worked well together. I was like, and then the year that she was gone, I remember it's almost like driving through a fog. Like, all right, now what can I find? And luckily I found my way through it. But I would say that was a moment where I had a real question mark in my head. And the other thing is that like sometimes you think as a cast member you have this role, and then the audience kind of tells you differently, which is another good sort of education when you're like, I'm this guy, and the audience is kind of like, well, we kind of prefer when you do this other kind of thing.
Is there an example of that or something that you're thinking of?
I just think in general, I was at my best when I was like a smaller part of the sketch, where like, for example, the Californian wasn't like, this like, it wasn't just me up there, just doing all this stuff. It was the fact that it was like, I was only one of the characters. I think it just worked out better if I had fewer lines. If I just come in and say a few things and keep it going. The Vincent Price sketches that Bill Hader did, same thing. Where if I was Liberace, that was like the right amount.
The flip side of that is probably doing something like playing the president, which you did for a while, playing Barack Obama. Was that something that you were uncomfortable with in terms of being the main part of the sketch, or being, because I think you really nailed his voice really well, but I think the show, and I don't put this on you, maybe had some struggle to figure out what made him funny compared to other presidents.
Yeah, those are written by Jim Downey. Most of them are written by Jim Downey, and he's commented on that as well. That like it's, to find where the sort of the humor and the parody of it. But I just always trusted the show, and especially trusted Jim Downey. Yeah, because no matter what politician I did, sometimes I don't know enough about politics to know what the angle is going to be. There were politicians I did where I remember I talked to Bill about this. We had to like look up to see what they looked like and sounded like. I mean, is this congressman? There's this senator. Who is he? Who is this guy? And there would even be talking points politically that Jim would write, and that I was like, I was just unclear of what those really were, which is funny because like because it's almost like the opposite of saying that like I'm up on the news and I know how politics works. Sometimes it was just like, let me just deliver for Jim. It really was like, let me deliver for Jim and for Lorne and just keep it going.
At some point, Jay Farrow came in and took over the Obama role. Was that a relief for you in some way that was sort of off your plate?
It was really great in that I was in the first sketch where he is in his Obama is amazing. And I sort of, I don't know what the sketch was, but I sort of introduce him, or I say something like, here he is,
You pass the torch.
I felt like, yeah, it's almost like I like the peacefulness of it, of Saturday Night Live. That like, that's how it works. That even symbolically, as the years go, how, there's new cast members and you just sort of move on from it. I loved that moment. And I loved Jay doing it, that it wasn't after I left the show. It was while I was at the show. And I really like that. I like this sort of, this is a group.
You said earlier that you would see people leave the show and not understand why. I think you stayed for 11 seasons, which at that time was longer than any, I'm not sure if it was longer than anyone else had stayed, or it was certainly among the longest.
It was up there. Now it no longer is, but it was up there. Yeah.
So was that part of you just saying like, why would I leave this place, or I'm happy here and I don't want to leave, or what do you think made you stay that long?
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's also the years go by so fast. I couldn't even imagine 7 years. Like, wow, what is 7 years? That's forever. Yeah. That's going to be, all of a sudden the 7 years was there, and I couldn't believe it. And then 8, and the numbers just really just burn into the next number, and I just kept thinking, no, this is fun. I remember, Sudeikis and Bill and Kristen. I mean, it's everyone in the cast, everyone who was there. I loved their company. So I just liked being around them. And then towards year 9 or something, I started doing Portlandia. And that's when I had a sort of other avenue to do sketches. And so for a little while I was doing both, but that felt like a natural sort of, okay, now I can move on to doing this.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it was like to do both of them at the same time, because most people, when they're on SNL, that's pretty much all they're doing. And you had Portlandia as well.
Yeah, but I liked the sort of overworking of it. Like, it was very romantic to be overworked and exhausted. It's like a glamorous problem. Like, oh God, I've got to get on a plane again, and I haven't slept in so long. Like, that's the fun of it.
Portlandia seems to be back in the consciousness now. One, because you've been doing some shows, I know, with Carrie, and also because your characters have become memes in the Trump Portland War. I don't know if you've been aware of this, but that the people have been using images of you and Carrie to make the point that Portland is perhaps not as on fire as the president thinks it is.
Yeah, it's really funny. People send me these memes all the time, and they're also well done. Like the graphics they pick and the words they pick are really just right on, and it's nice. It's a nice way for me and Carrie to feel like the show has relevance or a life. And the show's on Netflix now too. They've relicensed it. So we've really been enjoying what that is, how that looks, and the show, that it functions, in the present tense. When I look at the costumes too, and the hair and everything, I'm like, hey, that's pretty good. Like that. I like that we didn't. It sometimes doesn't look like, we didn't spend time working on the costumes and hair. Like, it looks like, we put some effort into, the jewelry they're wearing and all that stuff. All that stuff that, like, it's nice to see that.
I feel like you did a lot to define the way people think about the city of Portland through that show, because especially, you know, if someone has never been there but has only seen Portlandia, that's probably the image that they have in their head. So what would you say to people who have this sort of misperception that Portlandia, I mean, I'm calling it Portlandia, that Portland is some sort of, you know, dangerous place that needs, you know, the military to come in and fix it?
I don't imagine that anyone really thinks that.
Yeah, well, maybe one person does. Maybe
I'm delusional, but I think deep down everybody knows, like, come on. You know, but it's such a quiet city. It's really quiet. And I love that city. I was there recently, and I go as often as I can. And I mean, it's, you know, I appreciate being associated with it because of the show, but the city is so much bigger than that, than a sketch show. And bigger meaning its presence is more than just it's really nice that it's associated with, because we tried to compliment the show when we did it, but it's just such an ultimately beautiful, quiet, cozy city. It's so cozy.
I saw that you're playing Portland on New Year's Eve with John Mulaney. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's
Oh, really? You've been opening for him a little bit, right? This year, or?
Yep. Yeah. And one other time it was in arena, and it's been really fun expanding what a comedy stage show can be. So I keep it the same, you know what I mean? Like, because luckily there are cameras that sort of put you up on big screens, so I don't have to worry about like over explaining anything. But I'm as excited as can be.
I was thinking about his most recent special where he's talking about his intervention and how his joke is that it was he knew something was wrong because you were being serious. And I was just curious about what you made of that, making it into his special and that observation.
I loved it. I mean, I love getting to be a part of his life and that aspect of it. It's like two layers of, it's great being in his stand-up, and then it's great being in his life.
Yeah, I think it sort of was playing on this reputation of you as someone who no one can quite tell if you're joking or not. Is that something that you've run into before?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Where to me, I always think it's really clear, but but I try to make it obvious when I'm joking around, but maybe not.
I feel like you've probably been getting a lot of questions about this Uncle Fester spinoff of Wednesday. But I'm not going to ask you about that. I'm going to ask you about something else, which is, when are we going to get more documentary now?
Oh, we'll definitely make more of those. We're very kind of lazy about making those. They really do. The way they start, every season has been like a couple texts, you know, like maybe here's an idea for an episode, and maybe it fades away, and then little by little, if it picks up enough momentum, we'll go, I think we got, you know, a good 6 episodes here, whatever. Then we start getting into it. But it's really funny how it's a casual show. I think we make it very casually, like whenever the schedule works out. But I think there's been enough years now where I would really like to do another season soon.
Have you seen any documentaries that you thought, oh, this one could be something that we want to tackle?
No, it's more that like we've been talking about tropes. There's things that a lot of documentaries have been doing recently. So I think we're going to hopefully try to think of a way to capture that part of it. Yeah,
so less like specific parodies and more sort of dealing with tropes.
There's just been, because I think documentaries are so popular now, that there's like things that there've been moves that they've all been making. And that is a little bit like, maybe that's something to explore, but who knows? But there've been some funny ideas floating around. But I think it's a little bit location based, meaning the last one that we did was all in England and Wales. So maybe it's like one of us has to come up with, okay, what's a good place we can go where we could shoot all, whatever, 6 or something.
Well, I'm a huge fan of that show, so I really hope that you guys get to make more of it sooner than later.
I hope so too. I mean, I think we all do.
So now it's time for our segment called The First Laugh. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions about firsts in your career and life, starting with all the way back, the first piece of comedy that you remember making you laugh really hard as a kid growing up.
I would say something on Carol Burnett. And I can't remember specifically what it would have been, but I remember me and my sister laughing at something on Carol Burnett.
Do you remember the first time that you knew that you were funny, that you could make other people laugh?
I used to make my dad laugh by doing impressions of people who lived in the neighborhood pretty early on.
Yeah. So doing those voices and...
Yeah. Just quick little... I didn't even realize what I was doing, but it really entertained him.
I'm not actually sure when you started doing stand-up, but do you have a first joke that you wrote or a bit that you had that you just felt like, oh, this is working, this is making people laugh in a new way?
I remember specifically, I used to do a self-defense expert early on, and I would sort of, it was based on this guy who used to go, he was on Oprah sometimes, and he'd go around taking people's bags and things like that, and be like, is that how you hold a bag? Someone's going to take it or whatever. Open people's car doors. Like it's this thing that he did. So I did it based on him, and I just did it as there would be like local in New York and in Chicago, like variety shows. Someone would host something with musicians and stuff, and I would say like, oh, can I come on and do this self-defense guy? And then that's what I would do. So I would just do this self-defense guy, and I ended up doing him on a stand-up on Conan.
Oh yeah,
as the first time I was on network TV. But that's the first thing I did that was like performance based.
What about the first SNL sketch that you wrote and got on the air that you just felt like this is who I am, this is like I'm really representing myself and my comedy on the show?
Ooh, wow. I think Nicholas Fane, the comedian who is like alternative comedy.
Right, yeah.
And who doesn't really have any punchlines or anything, but, is just sort of talking about whatever's in the news. I felt like that was like a hard one to sort of, explain on paper. And I'd say maybe that one.
Was he based on anybody that you had seen or knew?
It was a mix on a couple different people. It was a little bit of David Cross, and then the style was a little more like Mark Maron. It was like Mark Maron and David Cross mixed together. Who, but by the way, both of who are friends of mine who I love. It wasn't poking fun at them. It was just like that was their style, and it was like just a lot. There is this scene of comedy that is that style.
Do you have a memory about the first time that you felt famous or got recognized in some way or just realized that people knew who you were?
It's more that I remember before. I somehow ended up in a group of friends in LA who were walking around with Kevin Nealon, and someone shouted out SNL to Kevin. And he was really nice, but he kept moving. He didn't go back and I was amazed at like, why didn't he go back and go like, whoa, you know me from SNL? I just didn't know how that all worked. So it's more like, I remember the difference between like that and, and getting more used to it. But I remember people also yelling SNL to me, but then when they'd start saying my name, that was very different.
Yeah, for a while you were just that guy from SNL.
Yep, yeah, SNL. They'd just say that, and that was fine with me. But then I remember a time where people would say my name, and I always thought it was someone I actually knew. So they'd say my full name, and I'd go, I think they were from high school or something.
Has that changed, or you still think that when somebody knows your name?
I always assume they're from high school. I had a very big high school.
When you look back at your career and sort of the decisions you made, is there something you said no to at the time that you now think, ooh, maybe I should have said yes in the moment?
Oh, wow. Maybe I should have said yes. Now I can't think of anything. Because I've said yes to almost everything.
Yeah,
I just
you do
usually go like, let's. I always try to think if the schedule works, let's find a way to make this work. And even if it's something that isn't quite my style, I think, well, maybe there's some way to, make it my own somehow. I always think about Jane Lynch whenever I say yes to something. I'm like, Jane Lynch, it really makes every role her own. All of a sudden you really see her. And sometimes I try to do the Jane Lynch approach.
The flip side of the question, is there anything you said yes to that you now think, ooh, maybe I should have said no to that one?
No way, because I am so happy with how things are, the stuff I've gotten to do. Like, whatever it took for me to end up doing Wednesday and Portlandia or whatever, I'll take it. Like, whatever chemistry and whatever timing, whatever it is that made those things happen, I can't question it and wish that I hadn't done it. And also, whatever the project, I always learn something. There's always some little thing that helps with, okay, what's a good way to, to do a scene? What's a good way to, things like that. What's a good way to not worry about coverage on a scene or script or any of those things? There's always something you get from it.
I usually ask guests about the first time they met one of their comedy heroes. For you, it may be more of a music person, I don't know, but I'm sure you've met a lot of people over your 11 seasons at SNL and through other projects as well. But when you think about meeting someone who was a really big hero of yours, what comes to mind?
Oh, that's easy. Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
That was like... And also because we were at a workplace, because we were at SNL. Mm-hmm. So it's less waiting in line to get an autograph or shouting from the audience or whatever. Or it really felt like there was enough silence around us where it was just a workplace that it felt meaningful. And he's awesome. He's a friendly, happy, engaging person.
Yeah.
And that's the best. That's the best thing, that there wasn't some person saying, well, you only get 5 minutes. And it was just, he was hanging out and being funny. And that was too, how much have we all like just stared at a picture of Paul McCartney?
Yeah.
But there was two things at once of like, wow, that's really him. And then, wow, what a great guy to hang out with.
The last question we ask on the show: is there a story or memory from your career that makes you laugh now, but really was not funny when it happened?
Wow. Oh, I wish I had more time to think about that. I think every time I'd say even pre-SNL, didn't get a part on something, on some, comedy show or something, where I thought, oh, I really needed that. And then it didn't happen. Now I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking?
You got worked up about it or just that it bothered you?
Yeah, the whole week I'd be like, I'm waiting to hear if this is going to happen. And then now it's just, or movies that didn't even come out. There's stuff I worked on. It was some animated thing. Some 3D animated thing. And also like at the time, it's not coming out. And then after a while, and now I'm like, I have barely a memory of it. So I'd say that's the kind of thing that I could look back at and sort of laugh at, the sort of like thinking that was it, that needed to happen. Yeah.
Well, it seems like you've had a very even-keeled approach to this career for quite a long time now. So I feel like that's something to be envied or emulated. I don't know.
Well, I'm people say it all the time about their lives, but I can't help it. But I really do feel like very lucky all the time that I get to do this, kind of I can't even call it a job, but just that I get to do all this stuff.
Fred Armisen, thank you so much for being here. 100 Sound Effects is available now. We'll put a link in the description for this episode to buy that and get tickets for your upcoming live shows as well. So I just really appreciate you taking the time to do this, and it's been really great talking with you.
Likewise. Thank you very much.